So now we start, there's a bunch of different stuff. I want to keep it kind of 10,000 foot level. I don't want to get too granular about pushing and pulling and small spatial stuff, but we're the green team for this exercise. This is the ideal start for the green team, okay? We want to have two of their opponents parked right next to one another, and we want to own both sides. If we do that, generally speaking, the lanes are going to compress. On these guys, we'll, after the start, we'll probably get something like this. And now we're starting to win the pairs, okay? We haven't talked about our big 5 rules, but, I'll maybe talk about that in the debrief. But the first thing that we want to do after the start is try to identify the 2 pairs that we're ahead of, and then look to try to make a play. So if you have a blowout start and like we're winning all 3 pairs, somebody, more often than not, it's the guy at the boat, needs to call the play. Play 1, play 2, play 4, we're chasing. Those are kind of the only 3 or 4 calls that you can make. A lot of times in really good team racing, or 2 teams that are really evenly matched and have an even start, it's really tough to identify the 2 pairs right off the line. So sometimes it's like, play 1, let's play it out. The guy on the right needs to win the right at all costs. He has to be the bow out boat. So a lot of times what will happen is say we get in this sort of situation, and one guy tacks and ducks through. It's the obligation of the pin guy or the middle guy to communicate to the boat, hey, incoming, here comes an opponent. Because a lot of times, if the duck is really steep and really fast, you can't tack, far enough forward on him to own the right. You kind of miss the opportunity. You wind up getting ducked on starboard, and then the other team has the right, and then, it's kind of a slow death from there. But the guy on the right should always look to lead to the right, unless, of course, it's an obvious situation where you're laying the mark, or starboard's really long, or there's a big left ship. Like, those are literally the only times. But does that sort of make sense to everybody? So the big takeaways, I just kind of threw a lot at you. The big takeaways are do your homework, okay? Understand where the ley lines are. Build a routine, do something that's repeatable. If you just kind of wing it on every single start, it's really hard to build any trust or chemistry with your teammates, and then you wind up having really inconsistent starts where you start really well sometimes, then other times you don't get that.
So what happens, just talk about the bandwidth of when the mark is in square and it's really kind of more leeward favored, so it's pin favored.
Yeah.
So what happens is that compression.
Yeah.
So just walk through how do you keep that separation when the compression's that much?
Like between what relationship?
Between the relationship of the committee boat and the mark, the pin, and then the relationship between the pin boat, the mark boat, and then your 1, 2, and 3, your middle.
Yeah.
The way I might conceptually explain it is just the way the shape of the box changes with the wind shift. So consider an oscillating breeze, all of a sudden the pin becomes favored, the shape of the box changes. Maybe explain the shallow box versus the deep box.
Okay, yeah, everyone loves a shallow box.
Much better articulated, thanks.
So, Tad, when the pin gets really favored, it's tricky because you want to leave, that's arguably more, you got to leave the pin guy on an island. You got to let him do his thing, because if he's circling around and his teammate, is right here kind of peacocking the start, and he's like, what the heck are you doing, Now I got to do a thin tag, maybe I'll lay, maybe I'll hit the pin, maybe I'll be over. So it's even more critical when it's pin favored to kind of leave the pin guy on his own. And then it goes back to pushing versus leading. And if you're the middle guy, you want to lead to the pin. And what I like to do in middle a lot, or in college I started in the middle a lot, you kind of want to gap up to windward as much as you can. If you're somebody's chasing you and you're like this, you're trying to create a lot of disturbed air, maybe make him tap, if he thinks that he can't lay it, then in this situation, the middle guy also becomes problem, I'll attack here. Inevitably, there'll be another pair trying to win. So, you know, yellow 3 will then have to call for room to attack or duck, in which case, then you can do a switch off with your teammate where you attack and leave out and you can switch that way. So, but the main point of leaving the pin guy on an island is trying to do your best to not get in his way and win your pair by leading the opposite guy back to the line. Does that answer your question? Kinda?
I think to simplify, if it is really pin favored, it's more advantageous to lead.
Yeah.
You have more control of
Right.
your approach and timing to the pin. And if it's a deep box or big right shift, pushing is easier because there's a lot of space.
Yeah, Phil.
So, where you described the perfect start earlier, where you're booking me, whatever.
Yeah.
So let's just say it's not a perfect start and your 2 right-hand boats are not really set up very well at all. Should the pin guy at some point decide to bail out and change his plan?
No, unless it's like a big shift, whatever. Generally speaking, especially in a port box, or even like a lot of times out here, the guy who wins the left is going to be the one at the top. You know, and the only time where that doesn't happen here is when it's a big westerly, and you know we're sailing closer to this side, and Lido, or like really far over, and Lido's in play. But generally speaking, the left boat is, if he's starting even with the boat on his hip, I'd say 45 to 60% of the time, the leftmost boat is probably still going to be the one. As soon as they make space and tack, now their chances of being the one at the top mark are tiny. Like it probably goes to like 15 to 20%, maybe even less. So you want to kind of be patient, and a lot of times too, like if the guy's able to pin you all the way to the left, this pair is going to be ahead. So now we have somebody in the race. So, you know, even if whatever happens over here where it's uneven or whatever, very worst, maybe we're 2, 5, 6 or something, and we're still in a position to be able to compress. So no, to answer your question, no, be patient, let your speed work for you, especially in a boat like the Harbor 20 or in a sonar where we were very confident in our speed. Just kind of like keep legging it out.